Sometimes when we run into errors in our code, it's not a syntax error, it's not a runtime error, it's just that the code doesn't quite do what it was that we had intended for it to do. And these things are often also caused by typos. So let's make a working copy of incrange-errors.py, and we'll call that incrange-errors-working.py. This is our inclusive range method from another example in this course. And there's the code, and you'll see that it calls it down here, and we'll just run it and see what happens. Well, nothing happens. That's not a good sign. So why would nothing happen? Well, what's supposed to happen? The object gets initialized and it gets constructed with these parameters, a start, a stop, and a step of 4, 25, and 3. And then it gets printed out by using the object as an iterator. And we can see right here, here's the iterator function. And it's got a yield here, which makes it a generator. So that looks like it should work. And we have the start, stop, and step. And so here's the start and the stop and the step. And let's just run through the code here and see what happens. I'm starting here because this is where the print is, and this is also just the shortest and easiest to look at piece of code. I happen to know, because I wrote this, that this is a little bit more of a hornet's nest. And so I'm just going to start here because it looks like a simple place to start. And this is where the action is actually happening here. So I equals start, while I is greater than or equals to stop. And that doesn't look right because the start is a 4 and the stop is a 25. So I would want to run this loop while I is less than or equal to the stop. So that looks like a typo. And so I'll change that and I'll save it and run it. And now we're getting some output here. So let's look at the output and see if it's correct. So we have this range. It starts at 4. And over here we're starting at 3. That's not right. And it stops at 25. Okay, well that's plausible. And the step is 3. So 3 plus 3 would be 6. 7 plus 3 would be 10. This is actually stepping by 4. It's starting at 3 and stepping by 4. So it would appear that I got those two swapped someplace. So let's look at the code and see how this works. So we have numargs, which is the length of args. Okay, so that's the number of arguments that I'm passing in. And if numargs is less than 1, we have a type error. If numargs equals to 1, so I've got 3 arguments. So let's just step down here to numargs equals 3. And so I assign them like this. Step, stop, and start equals args. Well, that's not right. It's start, stop, and step is what it should be. So I'll switch those. Those got swapped, just like I thought. Start, stop, and step. And that looks like it should fix it. I'll save that and run it. And here we have a different result. Let's see if this looks right. It should start at 4. It is starting at 4. Stop at 25. That looks right. And the step is 3. So we have 4, 7, 10, 13, 16. That looks right. So now it's working as we expected. At this point, I would test the other ways of passing parameters, test some other corner cases. I happen to know, because I made these errors, that that's the extent of the errors in the file. So the trick is, like so much of debugging, to be patient, to follow the execution of the code, to look at what's supposed to happen that's not happening, to look at what's happening that's not supposed to happen, and through patience and perseverance to find those little typos. And really the key here is the patience and perseverance. Sometimes this can just take a while.